Welcome to another Tuesday live stream. My name is Chuck Ridgway, your Automation Technology Manager here at Horner. And today we think we've got a fun topic for you. Today we're going to talk about using video with the Horner OCS all-in-one controllers. And my partner in crime today, Mr. Casey Gardner. How we doing, Casey?
Hey, not too bad. How's it going, Chuck?
It's going pretty good. So video kind of falls into another one of those features that a lot of our customers either aren't aware of or they don't really think they have a use for in their applications on their machines. Of all the application folks here at Horner, I'd say you've probably worked the most with customers who are looking to take advantage of the video capability in the Horner OCS.
I don't know about the most, but we did have a pretty good application here recently where the customer in this case basically was building a machine, and they wanted they highly valued the ability to play videos in terms of help or maintenance videos right there on the display. So what they were able to do is just embed some text right into their video, so that in environments where it may be noisy or anything like that, they could actually read it instead of having to rely on audio playback. And allowed them to really create a suite of different videos for different maintenance or troubleshooting techniques that really helped in a lot of their machines out in the field where they didn't necessarily have to remote into somebody's tech support or anything like that. It helped solve a lot of problems right there in the field.
Yeah, my understanding also is that not only is their environment noisy, like a lot of environments are, but they, in their particular case, the operators were new and continuous, really. It was an industry where there was a lot of turnover from an operator standpoint. So they would have relatively new operators that were inexperienced, and whenever they got stuck, there was a video there to help them get unstuck.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a huge value for them to, again, not have to put as much resources into training and still have all the same information readily available for them.
Very good. Okay, so while I am presenting the content today, Casey will be manning the chat. So if you have any questions on our topic, feel free to chat them in. Casey will either get them answered right away or he might save them until after the material. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, using video with the Horner OCS controllers. Okay, here's our program today. We're going to talk first about which models support video, because they don't all support video, although a fair number of them do. We're going to talk about the different video features that are available in the different models. Everything from video playback, live video over USB, as well as video mirroring in the case of the XL15 Plus. We're going to talk about the Cscape configuration that's required, and specifically the Cscape video object. We're going to talk about different video applications, how you could use this feature for your benefit, for your customers of your machine. And then, of course, we're going to do as much demonstrating as we can to help you understand how to set it up and how to use it at runtime. Okay. Okay, which OCS models support video? Well, a lot of them do, actually. The XL series from the XL4 on up, that includes the 6-inch widescreen, the standard 6-inch, the XL7, as well as the EXL10. All those models support video playback. Now keep in mind, we're not talking about, full cinema viewing here. We're talking about 320 by 240 resolution. The idea is to get the information to your customers while still, of course, spending a bulk of the OCS will still spend a bulk of its time controlling the machine. And then with these products, there's no sound that goes along with the video, but that's actually not as big a problem as you might think. Just think about the application Casey talked about earlier. Most applications, or certainly a lot of them, are loud enough where you wouldn't necessarily want to have sound playing video-wise on your machine. And by embedding the information in the video in the form of either subtitles or text, that helps you get your message across without having to have sound. Now, the XL15 Plus is our most capable audio-video product. It features up to full resolution, up to full screen resolution of 1024 by 768, and it does provide the ability to have video with sound. Now the X5 is a product that doesn't quite fit in the XL series, it doesn't quite fit in the Micro series, but it's got a lot of great capabilities, and video is certainly one of them. In that application that Casey talked about, the X5 was the product that that customer chose to use. It has the same specs as the XL series, although it does have the ability to go full screen for slightly higher resolution, and it's also available with a special video optimized firmware version that optimizes the performance of the video playback at the expense of a little bit of responsiveness in some other areas. But it's still a highly effective controller. That version of firmware just optimizes video playback. Okay, let's start by talking about how you would set up video in Cscape. So you're going to use the Cscape video object for the most part. So this object provides a mechanism for you as a system designer to configure the OCS to display either live video from a USB camera or video playback of pre-recorded files, most typically MP4. You're going to assign a control register, okay, and there are 3 bits in the control register that are used for control. You've got your start-stop bit, which is the least significant bit. The next significant bit is pause and resume. And then in the case of the XL Plus 15-inch, you've also got a mute and unmute button available to you through the 3rd bit of the control register. Now, in addition to control through the control register, you've also got status available. Now, for the XL series as well as the X5, the status is basically 1 word worth of information. And that 1 word provides the ability to tell you as a system designer that the video is playing, the video is paused, that the incorrect video channel was specified. When we talk a little bit more about USB video, you'll see what we mean there. Also, if the file is not present or happens to be corrupted for some reason, you'll get feedback in the video playback scenario. And then if the video that you've put on the particular micro SD card to be played back by the OCS, if that frame rate is not supported by the OCS, then you'll get an error with bit 5. Now, in the case of the XL15 Plus, you've actually got 2 additional status words, and they really are additional control points is what they are. So the second status word actually is your volume control that allows you to adjust the volume for the audio that goes along with the video as it's played back. And then in the case of the 3rd status word, you also have what's called seek control. So if for whatever reason you don't want to start playback of the video at the beginning of the video, let's say you want to start halfway through, then you can set that seek control to 50%, for instance, and then start playback actually in the middle of the video file. Now, let's also talk about the fact that you can specify video resolution. In the case of the XL series, you're pretty much limited to 320 by 240, which is quarter VGA. I think I previously mentioned that the X5 offers that resolution plus full screen, which is 480 by 272. And with the XL Plus, you've actually got a lot more options, and I'm only showing some of them on the screen here. So they range all the way from 320 by 240 all the way up to full screen. Now, from a frame rate standpoint, we recommend 24 frames per second or slower, although 24 frames per second is the same frame rate that's used by traditional video production. So you're going to get good quality motion video with 24 frames per second, and it's just less memory, less impact on the OCS's resources, which of course are being used not only for video playback, but also used to control the machine. So it just makes good sense to keep your frame rate at 24 frames per second. And if you do try to play a faster frame rate than that, the video will likely still play, but it will look like it's going in full motion, in slow motion. So obviously that's not desired in most cases. So stick with 24 frames per second or slower, and there won't be any issues there. Okay, now you may be thinking as you're watching this presentation, well, if I've got a video file that's 60 frames per second, it's 1920 by 1080 resolution, how am I going to play that on a Horner OCS when the top resolution on a, let's say, XL4 is 320 by 240 at 24 frames per second? Well, the good news is there are many available tools, both free and paid, for converting video files that allow you to take an existing video file and then customize the resolution, the frame rate, and the bit rate. So you can just record your video using, if you're going to be recording your own videos, using the normal procedures today, the normal modern procedures today, whether that's a mirrorless camera that's capable of video recording, whether that's an iPhone or an Android phone. But once you've actually created the video using the standard methods, you can use these programs to actually adjust the video content in terms of resolution, frame rate, and bit rate. Now, the one that we use most often at Horner, which is extremely popular, is one called Handbrake, and it's popular for a lot of reasons. One reason is it's free. Secondly, it's very powerful. And third, regardless of which computer operating system you're using, Windows, Mac, or Linux, there's a version available of Handbrake for you to use. Now, in terms of the recommended settings for the XL series and the X5, we would recommend an output of 320 by 240 resolution in most cases. Now, with the X5, you can actually go up to 480 by 272, but in general, the recommended settings would be 320 by 240 at 24 frames per second. And then in these programs that do the video converting, you also have the ability to specify a video frame, not a frame rate, but kind of a streaming setting, and 250 kilobits per second is a good setting there. Now, in addition to playing back video from a MP4 file or similar video file, you can also use our products, those same products, for displaying live video to provide your operator, for instance, with a unique view of the machine. So you might have a scenario where you've got an operator who is one section of the machine, and there is a key location in the machine that the operator just can't see very well for whatever reason. Maybe it's inside of a pinch point and out of their view. Maybe there is a really important aspect. Maybe a part needs to nest in a fixture or something, and if the part isn't nested properly, that can cause problems. So by putting a USB video camera in that area, you can provide a window on the screen of the OCS that shows the operator what they can't see on their own, based on their location or whatever the situation might be. Now, the video standard that is supported by the OCS is the USB video standard. So all of our OCS products are modern OCS products, so that would include the XL series from the XL4 on up, the X5 and the XL15 Plus, all the same products we've been talking about. You'll notice those all support a USB port, full-size USB-A port, and all those units coincidentally also support USB video. Now, technically, you can have up to 4 video cameras connected to an OCS through a USB hub. Now, up to 4 channels can be switched between by the OCS. However, keep in mind that the video channels that are assigned to each camera are going to be assigned automatically based on the order in which they power up. So if they don't always power up in the same order, it can be tricky, figuring out which camera is which. So in most applications with USB live video, you're going to be talking about a single camera. Now, another video feature that we should talk about, because it is supported by the XL15 Plus, and that is the fact that video mirroring of the OCS display is possible. And that's because the XL15 Plus features a digital video output connector for that very purpose, for screen mirroring. And that's called, or at least it's in the form of a mini DisplayPort type video port. All right. Now, mini DisplayPort may be a port that you haven't heard of. However, it is compatible with the most popular digital video connections today, which are HDMI, DVI, and full-size DisplayPort. And one thing that's nice about Mini DisplayPort is the fact that it is royalty free. So we didn't have to pay a ton of money just to add this port to our product. Whereas if we would have put the HDMI port directly on our product, we would have huge royalty dues that we would have to pay. And we're not trying to shirk any kind of royalty, but Mini DisplayPort is free, and it also can be used with displays that feature HDMI, so it offers the best of both worlds. Now when you do connect an XL Plus or an XL15 Plus, for instance, to a display over HDMI, you do need to use what's called an active converter or an active cable to convert that Mini DisplayPort over to HDMI. But those are readily available, they're not expensive, and you shouldn't have any trouble sourcing any of those. The way that the picture looks on the screen that it's connected to is going to depend on the settings that are available on the screen that it's connected to. So as many of you probably know, the XL15 Plus has a 15-inch screen, but it's in a traditional 4:3 aspect ratio. And most large displays these days, certainly television type displays, are a widescreen ratio. So is it going to have black bars on the side when it's shown on the TV? Is it going to be stretched to fill the screen? Well, most video devices give you the ability to select what happens in that scenario. So on the video device side is where you would set that action, whether you want it stretched or you just want black bars on the side to fill up the area that is not there because of aspect ratio. All right, so the first thing I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate for you today is video playback on an X5. And I did go ahead and update my X5 with version 15.32 of firmware, which has been optimized for video. So any applications where video is really, really important and it's a relatively low-end application, the X5 is a great choice, and using that 15.32 firmware to optimize performance in that scenario is another good choice. All right, so let's start by taking a look at Cscape so we can see what the setup looks like here for our demonstration. So, and I'm going to jump right into the screen editor, even though you can see I've got some ladder logic already written here. Okay, so here's screen number 1 as I've currently designed it. And the main thing you can see on the screen is this video object, okay, that I've already configured. Now, where do you find the icon for the video object when you're adding it to the screen initially? Basically, it is this profile of this video camera is effectively what you'll find on the icon for selecting the video object. Okay, and then once you select it as like any other graphics object, you basically click and stretch it on the screen, and then you double click on it to configure it. So let's go in and take a look at how it's configured here. Okay, so first thing you need to go ahead and configure is, are we going to be showing live video or a live stream? If so, we would check the top check mark or the top radio button. If we're going to be playing back a file, we're going to select the playback option. Okay, now whether you're talking about the channel number or you're talking about the target path, and the path is basically the file name including the path, you need to specify a variable here. Okay, so you can't just type in the name of the video file that you want to play back through this video window or this video object. You need to specify an integer type variable, and you'll need a series of them because it's going to be interpreted as ASCII data with 2 characters per 16 bits of data. So in my case here, I have allocated an array. I've got a variable here, an integer type variable that is actually an array of 10 consecutive words, which gives me the capability of specifying a path plus file name of up to 20 characters. So that's what I have allocated in this case. If you're using register-based variables, okay, so register-based programming, then what you would do is you would specify a register number, And then you would need to have a null character at the end of your string for your file name. Okay? But in my case, I'm using variable-based programming, variable-based advanced ladder to be exact. And so I've allocated a array of 10 words. Okay, so now you also have to configure your trigger control. Okay, and remember, those are those 8 bits which are typically part of a word, which you would use to start and stop the video, pause the video. In the case of the XL Plus, you would actually use it to potentially control muting or unmuting of the audio, those sorts of things. Okay? And then next you have to assign a status register. And in the case of the XL series and the X5, that's just a single word. In the case of the XL Plus, that's an array of 3 words. Okay? Or if you're using register-based logic, 3 consecutive words. And then down here is where you configure your resolution as well as your frame rate. Now I've set the frame rate to maximum. You have all these other choices available to you as well. When you set it to maximum, it's just going to attempt to use the frame rate, the native frame rate of the video. So if it happens to be a 60 frame per second video, it's probably going to look like it's in slow motion. If it's a 24 frame per second or a 30 frame per second type video, then it'll look perfectly normal. Although, again, 24 frames per second or slower is kind of the recommended frame rate for the OCS products. Okay, so that's setup of this particular video object. Now what I've done is I've actually created my own play and stop button using a toggle switch. So I'll double click here, and you can see that I'm effectively referencing the first bit or the least significant bit in the trigger variable that I assigned. And if that is a 1, I'm going to play the video. If that's a 0, it's going to be stopped. Okay, so under indicator properties, I've made it so that when you are not playing the video, you'll see play on the button. While the video is playing, you'll see stop on the button, because that's what's going to happen if you press the button in those scenarios. Similarly, with the second bit, I've created a pause and resume button. Okay, so there's the second bit in the trigger variable, and I've assigned that one as pause and resume. All right, and that's pretty much the only control that you have with the XL series as well as the X5. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at what that looks like at runtime. All right, I'm going to go ahead and switch over here to my X5. The reason that the video object is black is because it's currently not playing. So if I were to go ahead and press the play button, you'll see I've just got a video here from an excerpt from one of our previous videos. I just used it to kind of illustrate how you can take standard high resolution video, which in our case we always record in 1920 by 1080 with sound, of course. And then you can convert that through cropping or video conversion using, in this case, I used Handbrake to whatever it is you need. Now, of course, our customers that take advantage of this feature, they used embedded instructions, whether those are subtitles or whether those are just graphics that are embedded on the screen to get their point across, which makes a lot of sense in environments where you've got noise and it's not easy to hear what you'd be watching anyway. Okay, so that's watching video in a window at 320 by 240 resolution on an X5. Now let's head back to Cscape again, and this time let's take a look at how we would set up full screen video. All right, so I have on screen number 3, I'll go ahead and maximize it here. I've got another video object, but it's the only thing on the screen. All right, and if you double click here, you'll see that I've got a separate video I'll be playing, not the same file, separately assigned trigger and status registers or variables, and I've set my resolution to be full screen and my frames per second at max frames per second. Now, This particular video I'll be showing you was converted using Handbrake to 480 by 272 from a resolution standpoint, converted to 24 frames per second from a frame rate standpoint, and it's been loaded on the micro SD card where all the videos are located that are played back by the OCS. Okay, so just very similar configuration, but you select full screen in this particular case. All right, so as we go take a look at the X5. Oh, before we do that, let's go ahead and go back to Cscape, because there's a little bit of ladder logic involved here, and I should really point that out to you before we show what happens at runtime. Okay, so first of all, this is logic. If we're looking here at the first rung, this is logic that was involved in both video objects, both the video window as well as the full screen video, and that is we are using a string move to move over the ASCII string of the path that includes the file name. So x5_101.mp4 is the name of the file that I am playing for one of the videos, and then similarly for the full screen video, I've got a different file name because I've got a different video that's being displayed. Okay, so you do need to use variables when you're specifying the video file name, and using something like a string move function allows you to simply assign those values of the path and the file name. Now, you might want to have a separate page in your project where somebody with password protection would enter in the video name so that you don't have to get Cscape out in order to change a video name or play a new video, that sort of thing. But in my case, I just went ahead and used logic to do it. Okay, so in both cases, we needed to use that. All right, now the way I've got my demonstration set up here for full screen is not totally unlike what customers might do. So you might have a machine condition that occurs, and you may want to show a video, or you may have an operator that from a different screen says, you know what, I would like some help on this particular topic, and they press a button to opt into this help video, for instance. So in that scenario, you're going to be switching to the screen that contains the video full screen. Okay, so in my case, this happens to be screen number 3. So I've just written some simple logic that basically says if the user screen is equal to screen number 3, then let's wait about a second and let's trigger a bit that will cause our least significant bit of our playback register to turn on. Okay, now notice another thing. The trigger bit is a one-shot. Okay, and I did that in this case so that we would only automatically play the video when we first arrived on the screen, and not just replay the video continuously after we'd been sitting there for a while. Okay, so that's why that's a one-shot. That was my choice. However, the bit that is the playback bit, the play stop bit, that I've used a set coil there, and that was on purpose. That bit needs to stay on for as long as the video plays. Otherwise, if it turns off, again, it's going to stop, just like you'd expect. It's a play stop bit. Now, what will happen in the OCS firmware, however, is once the video stops playing, then the OCS firmware will turn off that trigger bit and automatically put it back into stop mode, effectively. So that's why I used a set there. So I set the bit with my trigger, which happens when I arrive 1 second after I arrive on the screen. And then after the playback is done, then that bit is going to turn off because the OCS told it to turn off. Now, because in my case, I want to automatically return to the previous screen after the video is complete, and you may not want to do that in your application. Because of that, what I've done is I've basically said if I'm on screen number 3, the screen where I'm playing a video, and the status bit that tells me if there's a video playing or not is off. So that means the video's not playing. And if it's been off for 2 seconds, all right, that's a pretty good indication that the video is done playing it's not just waiting to get started, but it's done playing. And then when that happens, I'm going to go ahead and move a 1 back into the user screen to go back to screen 1. So that's how I've configured this particular logic to help in the result that you're going to see here at runtime. So back to the X5. This time I'm going to go ahead and switch over to screen number 3. And then shortly after arrive there, you'll see the video is playing, but this time it's in full screen. So this is not just a smaller screen stretched. I actually converted this particular file to take advantage of the full screen resolution of the X5. And you'll notice, just keep an eye out here, you'll notice that the video quality is pretty good. You could easily have some nice help file content that you'd create for your machine. Of course, you'd have to include graphics or subtitles to help with the content that you're trying to get across here, and diagrams are also good as well. But as you can see, it's pretty effective. Okay, so that's what I wanted to show you for the X5. Oh, you'll notice a couple seconds after the video finished, it went back to the first screen just like we had it designed. All right, let's head back to our presentation, and then we're going to jump right into some of the features of the XL15 Plus that are unique. So we're going to get to see some larger video sizes. We're going to get to actually hear audio along with the video. And then we're also going to be able to kind of see how the video mirroring through the built-in digital video output works. Let's go ahead and go into Cscape again. And I'm going to change programs this time. So let me pull up my XL15 Plus demo. It's very similar to what I did with the X5, but some slight differences. Let's head to the graphics section here, and the main difference here is there are additional options available, additional video controls, resolutions, etc., available with the XL15 Plus that you don't find in the XL series or the X5. So we can see these if we double click here, at least from the standpoint of additional resolution choices, anywhere from 320 by 240 all the way up to full screen. You can just specify a variable screen size of pretty much any size from a video standpoint. You can specify just the aspect ratio, and then it will stretch. As you stretch it, it'll stretch in that aspect ratio. Okay, so pretty flexible from a configuration standpoint in the case of the XL Plus. The other big difference here is that the status register is no longer a single 16-bit value. Okay, it's actually 3 consecutive 16-bit values. So that's why I've assigned a word array with a dimension of 3 for status in the case of the XL Plus. Another thing to see is that even on the trigger register, that's no longer an integer. That is now a double integer value. Okay, so again, with more control comes more of a need for additional control bits and additional control words. So those are the main differences in the configuration of the XL Plus versus the configuration that we just reviewed in the X5. Everything else is very similar. Now, just like I built play, stop, pause, resume buttons for the X5, I can build additional options for the XL15 Plus. I've got a mute and unmute button. I've got a volume control from 0 to 100, and I've got a playback point. It's really called a scrub control, but playback point is what I used in my description of this operator, where again, you can specify from 0 to 100%, and that's the point at which playback will actually start in the video. Okay? All right, now that we've taken a look at what's going on here with the XL Plus, these are the main differences. Everything else is pretty much the same. The logic that I wrote to show the video on the XL Plus is the same. In this case, for my demonstration, about the only real logic involved is assigning that file name. I didn't do any of the switch screening and those sorts of things. Let's go ahead and now take a look at our XL Plus. Now, I want to point out a couple things for you here. one thing you'll probably notice from looking at the screen is you're not looking at a video camera or a video picture of the XL15 Plus. You're actually looking at what looks like kind of a screen on the XL15 Plus, and it also looks like it's stretched a little bit horizontally, and actually that is both true. So what we've got here is we've actually connected, or I've actually connected the output, the mini DisplayPort connection from the XL15 Plus has been connected to an active converting cable, and the other end is HDMI, and that HDMI is plugged into our video setup here. Now, in our video setup, the equipment that's actually receiving the video signal, does not have the option of showing the original aspect ratio, so it automatically will stretch to fill the available space. So the 1024 by 768 output from the XL Plus in this case is being stretched horizontally to 1920 by 1080 type resolution, and there's nothing in the XL Plus I can do to affect that. Now, most devices that you're going to be connecting an XL Plus to through the mini DisplayPort are going to have a configurable option for stretch or original aspect ratio. It just so happens that the setup I have here, there is no selection. All right, so this is what's showing on our XL Plus screen. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to go ahead and start this video. Now, one thing I will have to admit, I did not check the audio level before I started. So I'm going to turn the audio down to a fairly low level and then slowly turn it up. We don't need any blasting of our ears during the live stream. Okay, so let's go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and just select a playback point at the very beginning, which is 0%. I'm going to go ahead and hit play. All right, and then within a couple seconds, same basic video, but this time with sound and more resolution. We're both for the right function block, one of the original function blocks that we developed for removable media. Remember today's takeaway, though. Hear the video there. Read structure and write structure function blocks are far easier to use. Looks like the level's pretty good. Than the original read and write function blocks with removable media. So use those variable baseline. Of course, I can mute the audio. Now you shouldn't have any audio at all if things are working as they should. We can pause video. Of course, pressing the pause button again created a resume. Okay, now let's say for the sake of argument, and I don't know that this gets used all that frequently, but let's say we want to actually start about halfway through in the playback of the video. So I'm going to go ahead and set this playback point at 50%. All right, and I'll hit playing. Now, I think what will happen is you'll probably see just a blip of the first few frames of the video before it jumps to 50%. So let's take a look. And I'll go ahead and mute it this time. Yeah, so we did get a few frames as the file was loaded and the playback began, but it quickly jumps to the 50% mark, and as you can see, I've got it on mute. Okay, so hopefully that's a good demonstration of all the video capabilities that are available in both the X5 model as well as the XL15 Plus, and the XL4, XL7, etc. have very similar capabilities as the X5. It's just that the X5 has the extra capability to go full screen with greater than 320 by 240 resolution. Okay, let's go ahead and bring Casey Gardner back in. Hey Casey, how we doing today?
Hey, not bad.
Did that look a little similar logic-wise to some of the things that you saw that you helped a customer do to switch screens and start playing and all those sorts of things?
Absolutely, and there's even some fun stuff we can do, like in the X5's case, where it's or the XL15 Plus, where you're taking up the full screen of resolution. You can kind of do some fun logic behind the scenes, where basically if you're touching the screen to get back out of that screen, since it's taking up the full screen as well. So there's all sorts of fun stuff you can do there.
Nice. So basically what you're saying is that you took advantage of, or you helped the customer take advantage of a system register that displays the coordinates of the last touch, right?
Yes.
And then if that is
Yes.
not 0, then they touch the screen, and when you detect that touch, you said, all right, we're done playing the video, let's go back to the other screen.
That's the case. Yep.
All right,
Yep.
terrific. Any questions today?
I don't think so. Let me look. Nope, no questions that I can tell. So, again, once again, you're too good at explaining all the great features we've got.
All right, well, I don't know about that, but if anybody is watching this on replay, go ahead and chat in your question if you have one, not in the chat, of course, but in the comment section, and then we will get notification that a question exists, and we'll get it answered quickly. All right, thanks, Casey. Okay, so again, just a reminder that you should always check out our website, not only for our latest event listings for YouTube as well as webinars that we hold on a regular basis, but you should also look for our newsletter as well, where we announce new products, new versions of firmware, etc. We have other features available. Marcy puts a lot of work into that, and it's a really nice piece that goes out on a periodic basis. Also, every Tuesday, of course, we're here with another technical topic with our YouTube live streams every Tuesday at 2 o'clock. September looks like this. So we just finished, of course, using video with OCS. We've got 3 more topics this month, from using shift registers. Definitely an instruction that has a lot of capability. Some people get scared away by because there's a lot of configuration required, but it's very powerful. We'll also show you that it's not nearly as difficult as it may look on the surface. We're also going to cover analog I/O scaling. We're going to take a look at different platforms from Horner, whether you're talking micro series or smart rail or anything in between. We're going to talk about the way the analog values are presented to the controller through the I/O configuration. And then we're going to talk about scaling strategies for scaling that information to engineering units and to PID loops and all those sorts of good things. And then we're also going to take a look at compare functions. Compare functions seem simple, but we have some little used compare functions, such as time and date compare, which you really should know about, because if you've got any kind of a scheduling application or a scheduling aspect to your machine, those compare functions come in really useful. Okay. So don't hesitate to join us next week, as our topic is using shift register functions in Cscape. As always, don't forget to subscribe. Also click the bell so you'll get notifications when we go live, as well as when our videos are posted, and we do lots of videos in addition to our live streams. Our technical support team puts out a video periodically. I think we've got one coming up here soon, so keep your eye out for that. And if you subscribe, you should get a notification whenever the videos happen. Okay, so thanks again for joining us this week. We look forward to seeing you again next week. If you're watching this on replay, don't forget, ask your questions. Just do it in the comment section. We'll still get them answered. Thank you.